the schools in Alabama because I know them. And so I would bring that to the table as an example. So we do understand curricula, we do understand schools, we do understand strength of schedule. We look, let's just as an example, say you had a 4.0, but you went through college in 7 years, taking 8 hours per year. Well, that's still a 4.0, I understand that, but we recognize that you weren't really tested perhaps to the degree that you're going to be tested in medical school. Because you know, the party line in medical school is the typical, what you have and are taught and have to learn in a typical semester in undergraduate, you do in about 3 weeks in medical school. It might even be some of the same information, but it's the amount of information in the shorter amount of time. That's the difference. Okay? So that's where preparatory work in your undergraduate years of things that you may see in medical school are going to help you out, because you're going to see a heck of a lot of stuff that you've never seen before, and you've got to get it in the short amount of time. But it's not that you can't do it. It's not some sort of secret society of information that you can't get. You just have to be sure that you were set up to focus and understand that I'm going to have to party less and study more. But if this is what you want to do, it's well worth it, and you actually engage in that passion Dr. Catalano recognized. You know, if it were easy to get, then why can't everybody do it? Okay? And it's a profession, once again, that has a lot of wonderful outcomes for you. Respect, prestige, money, etc. But it needs to be a lot more than that. And once again, that's where that interview comes in. Because it's, if you really want money, go into business. Don't fool with medical school and the cost and residency. And that's 10 or 12 years when you get out of college and business and go to the stock market and be good and make. I mean, that's just kind of an example of the type of attribute or the type of characteristic that we're trying to find out about you in that interview. Be sure you understand that the stockbroker would not make you happy, because that's not what medicine's all about. Okay?
And one thing to follow up on Dr. Smith's question is a fair number of students that I've talked with have made this mistake, and that is they have to take a science course, let's say organic, for example. They know it's going to be tough, so they decide to take it during the summer. That's fine if you take it at Clemson. But don't make the mistake, as some have done, to take that tough course and take it at an institution that does not have the academic rigor that your home institution does. And that will hurt you. It will send up a potential red flag. So be careful about that. It's fine to take a course over the summer, just make sure you take it at the right place. Okay? The second thing, to get back to some of the MCAT GPA discussion that we should have mentioned, don't be afraid to take the MCAT more than once. If you're not satisfied with the MCAT, we'll probably have a sense during the admissions interview that you're not satisfied, because you know what you're trying to get, we know what you're trying to get. If you don't retake the MCAT, that could, I'm not saying it absolutely will, but that could give us the message that, I think that's the best I can do. Or, I just didn't want to hassle with studying for that MCAT again. I studied for 3 months, and I've got more things to do, so I'm going to let that MCAT ride. And many of us get asked that question multiple times. We won't look down on you for retaking the MCAT. We could, depending upon the circumstances, be disappointed that you did not retake the MCAT. Unlike the SATs, you can't really mix up the MCATs and take your best from multiple attempts. Now, that said, on the admissions committee, we'll look at that. There's no policy to do that, and there's no regulation that we do that. But don't worry about taking the MCAT again. I'd rather see you retake it than not retake it in the majority of circumstances. So be careful about maintaining the academic rigor, and don't hesitate to retake the MCAT.
Yeah, put another way, we recognize a padded GPA. So if you would say, well, I'm showing I have a 3.6 and it's A's in basket weaving and badminton and 2 C's in organic, but I've got that 3.6 depending on it. You see, the numbers are guides, but they're not the be-all to end-all. We will tease through and look at coursework, look at where you took the coursework, look at what else you were taking when you took that coursework. Part of the interview would maybe look at issues in your personal life that impacted on your inability to do as well as you would have otherwise. It's a dynamic process of the interview, and it's just not the numbers. But we're on to people, we've been around long enough, we're on to it that what you want to do is to put your best application forward and realize that you need to show us that you have the ability to be successful in medical school. And that we then see that you have the heart for medical school. Like I talked about, the numbers of the brain, with the passion and things of the heart. And a physician is a combination of scientist and social worker. You have to have both. If you just want to be a scientist, you be a PhD. If you just want to help people in the world, you be a social worker. The physician has to do both. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
When you see so many applications, what makes a personal statement stand out?
That's a very good question. I think that the basics have to be there. Spelling, organization. I mean, trust me. We look at that because we think this person can't spell. That means they're not going to pay. They don't pay attention to the small things, or and it bothers us that as a physician you have to pay attention to the small things. So the basics need to be there. Okay, it needs to flow. It needs to be able to deliver, if you will, a commentary about who you are in an organized fashion. Then once you get all the basics down, then I think there's no really exact answer to the question. I think there's a really wrong statement that may be just over the top and just superfluous and full of imagery that we're trying to figure out what are they saying, or one that's a paragraph long. And then there are those that maintain the construct but are able to convey the special part of you that we will not see in the rest of the application. You wouldn't talk about your GPA necessarily unless there was a reason, because we can see the GPA. We're looking for that statement to reflect you as an individual, you as a person that may have a different quality that we can't read in a written. Now, we may see it in the interview, but remember, you got to get to the interview, and we're reading the statement before you get an acceptance for the interview. It's about, many times, the experiences that you've had that validate why you want to be a physician. It has to do with the view that you have of the profession and why you are well suited for it. It can take on a personal sad story and how you've grown from it. And that's why I can't just give you a pat answer, because the personal statement is a time, for example, if you're applying and you've got a bad something happen, it's a time for many times you to explain that, who you were then versus who you are now, and how you have grown from that experience, and not to use Dr. Catalan's word, excused. Don't give us a bunch of excuses, but show us how you've grown from the experience. A personal statement can do that. So I don't know if I've given you a direct answer, because I don't know how to give a direct answer. Maybe these two gentlemen can give you a better direct. But are you getting kind of a drift of the importance of that personal statement?
You're doing good.
Other questions?
Do y'all have any students in the MD program that are participating in research? I know MD, PhD, of course, but do you have MD students that do research?
The MD PhD program does exist, which you can apply for. You have to get an MD part first before you get the PhD part, okay? And there are these other combined degrees that they're looking at right now. Currently, those are MD and PH, okay, in here. But there are opportunities for research that a student would do outside a formalized program, summer research projects. And in fact, a lot of the specialties that you may want to go into, and one that I think of kind of off the top, and again, like orthopedics, like orthopedics, they kind of look to see you had some research experience in that field of orthopedics that you have to get. So there are summer programs that are available between the first and second year, because remember, you're off then. In the fourth year, there are a lot of electives, of which research can be one of your elective months that you can do. Or you can kind of have this research kind of weave through the entire curriculum on a case-by-case basis, as long as obviously you're successful in the other parts of your medical education. So the quick answer is yes, okay? But sometimes you have to find your mentor, find that you're interested in, look at what's available. In the summers, there are 8-week programs where you actually get paid stipends that you compete for the summer, where certain students would be involved in certain research projects. And again, that's going to be who gets it are going to be those that have shown an interest in that and have some validation for it, that sort of thing. So yes, it exists.
A little over about half our students do research over the course of the 4 years, so we don't require research. I stand up, but it's too difficult to focus on 3 people, so I'm leaving the 2 class acts on stage there. So I feel bad for Rhett because he's having to move that camera around from spot to spot.
Another question? Yes, ma'am.
Out of the 90 that you accept, how many graduate?
That's a good question. The attrition rate is actually very low. We have what's known as kind of a recycle program, because traditionally where the student gets in trouble is that first semester. They're having to acclimate to the rigors of medical school. I'm on the academic review committee, so I meet with every one of those students who get an academic difficulty. And many times we look at what's best for that student, and it may be that they need to recycle. They just need to start over the next year. And we do that. Because once you get accepted, we do what we can. Our commitment to you is to graduate you as a physician who is the best physician possible that you can be and who's going to be a successful physician. Does everybody have that commitment on their side? No, and so there is an attrition rate. The percent would probably be extremely, like 97% would be the final number. But we really work hard at trying to be sure that number is higher or lower, whichever way you're going to look at it. But just sometimes there are issues that really reflect an individual student is really not, this is not what they want to do, okay? And it is rigorous, okay? Yes, ma'am.
What would you recommend for somebody who's taken their time to figure out what they want to do, and now they're in their first semester of their senior year, and
I would
Just a
love
friend
it.
of yours?
yeah, a friend of a friend,
Yeah, I got
you
I would
know.
love it. Yeah. The trick is that though you're going, if you were to apply to medical school, you're going to apply with what you've got, what you have done in the past. It's there. You can't get rid of it, right? So that individual may be something to say, come, let me look at where you are. Let me look at what you've got. Let me look at helping you get the application that's best to be successful. It may be this is not the year for you. This is what you need to do this next year because it's better for you to apply the next year. I mean, or 2 years from now. There are students that I see all the time, one-on-one. They come to me and I say, you know, you got to go on a 2-year plan. Let's set up the next 2 years. It's just not going to work. You're not ready to apply to medical school based on whatever transgressions have occurred in the past. But I understand that's what you want. So we will look at your best application. Let's look at what you can do now because you're a different person now than you were 5 years ago. And so I'll put you on the 2-year plan. I'll recommend a 2-year plan. It may be getting a master's. It may be going back and taking coursework and making A's. It may be that the MCAT's a problem. Do we want to take Kaplan? Do we want to take Princeton Review? Do we want to take a coursework that's going to improve your MCAT? So, without knowing any more particulars, what I'm trying to communicate to you is that we look at you as an individual, and there's nothing wrong with the late start, the late bloomer, the change in one's life direction. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. That is, I won't say encouraged, but it's embraced. But you still got to be able to cut the mustard. And so we still have to look at you as an applicant in a whole pool. And so the numbers are still there, but somebody like you, you know, we may even, I'm just making this up, I have no idea. But let's just say that you were 30 years old and you graduated from college 8 years ago and your GPA was 2.0. And here you want to go to medical school, and we got on the 2-year plan where you went and got your master's, or you went back and got another degree, and you make a 3.8. We're throwing out the 2.0. We're not even looking at it. Because who you are now as to who you want to be a doctor is totally different than what you were. And you'll bring strengths of maturity,